As the motor racing podcast industry undergoes a once-in-100 years period of great transformation, Motorsport 101 has decided to strive for never improving. Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Hey gang, welcome to episode 270 of Motorsport 101. See, I corrected myself on the fly because when I wrote the set list I put 260. Way to go, Dre. That's that impromptu hosted right now.
You couldn't even be nice.
No,
we had that already.
We can have it
we've
again.
already done that. This is also we can call it 269.69. It's a great nice addition. Why not? We're really mature on this show. We broke out jokes about a certain number 45 seconds in. That's got to be a record for us. Way to go, everybody. Welcome to episode 270 of Motorsport 101. I'm your host, Dre Harrison, and welcome back. Just good to see you. With me, as always, RJ O'Connell. Hello, sir.
Hi, if you watched or listened to the last episode, you'll be glad to know that my beloved baseball team is still in it as of time of recording and going to kick the crap out of the Miami Marlins. It's a good time. It's great. What are we talking about today, Dre?
We are talking about, well, the big one being Honda quitting F1. That is, yeah, as you do. Minor story. So much that we made a new story at the main event, which doesn't happen very often on this show, but here we are. We'll get into that, and we'll get into IndyCar's, shall we say, fun Harvest Grand Prix weekend, the apple cider, as Cam would call it, of racing weekends, because he insists on that being his favourite autumnal flavour.
It's the superior fall flavour. I'm willing to throw down on this.
Look, we've already agreed that one of the races was the Pumpkin Spice Grand Prix, and the other was going to be the Apple Cider Grand Prix.
It's a fair swap. Oh, and King's Playoff Beard is back here too. How's it going, buddy?
Yep, Yankees still in the playoffs. Let's not talk about other sports.
It's bad when circumstances are such that, if Sam Darnold was actually getting mononucleosis again, it would be somehow not the worst case scenario.
I would say, I think
how these things turn out.
Again, I think that would be healthier for him than his offensive line right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Both options are equally painful and are best off avoided. But yes, we'll be the main two subjects will be obviously on the quitting F1 and IndyCar's Harvest Grand Prix. We got some bonus stuff we could talk about depending on recording length as well, but we'll leave that for a little while. It's fun though.
It's a
surprise.
Trust me.
Let's
know what it is.
Let's just say a certain old segment from our previous episodes might be making a comeback this weekend.
Ooh, is it keeping it 101? I want to talk about Everton's form in the Prem this year. I mean, they're rolling.
Less said about Manchester United, the better. Oh dear. More on that later. But in the meantime, let's go to the places you can find us real quick. We're on youtube.com, of course, /Motorsport 101. If you're watching us on there, hi, nice to see you. Why not subscribe and hit the bell to find out when we're next going live or when we next have episodes due out. That's always fun. We're on facebook.com /Motorsport 101. We're on Twitter at Motorsport_101. And if you'd like to follow our personal handles, you can at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at CBuckley917, or at King's Playoff Beard.
Ryan Eric King.
I think I had the better name personally, but
we're also on Instagram at Motorsport101pod, POD, like the early 2000s band we've seemed to have forgotten about in recent years. So we're on all the major social media platforms. You should give us a follow.
I can't wait for us to be on Snapchat this time next year. It's going to be great.
God.
No, all the cool kids are getting in on Weibo.
Yeah. We might have a private WhatsApp group at this race.
I think
that's also all.
I think the next place we should expand is Quibi.
No.
Bad investment. Bad.
It is clear to see, based on the financial times we are in, the place to go is a private Instagram account. I know.
Motorsport 101, soon to be on OnlyFans.
Whoa. Private Instagram, different than OnlyFans, because we still have to adhere to the terms and conditions of Instagram.
Should I go
What's
ahead
the
and take
point,
my
then?
pants off?
No nips allowed. But if that sounds appealing to you, in the meantime, you can back us financially on Patreon. Patreon.com/Motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all the audio editions of our shows, including King in the Dario Franchitti shirt in the wet. $10 gets you the supporters club of our Discord server where you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded, and includes RJ in an Atlanta United shirt and nothing else. It's what the people want to see, quite frankly.
I don't know if they want to see this Atlanta United team in 2020. With no Joseph, no Miguel, interim coach, because Frank DeBoer was not very good.
Still plenty of ball control, though. But without further ado, let's get into the main event of the episode and talk about Honda leaving Formula One.
October 2nd, 2020. Honda to conclude participation in the Formula One World Championship at the end of the 2021 season. In 2015, Honda resumed competition in F1, the most prestigious automobile racing series in the world, with the goal to win using its own energy management technologies. Initially, Honda experienced a number of difficulties. However, by demonstrating the collective strength of all Honda, including the utilization of its aircraft engine technologies, Honda has realized a high level of competitiveness. In the meantime, as the automobile industry undergoes a once-in-100-years period of great transformation, Honda has decided to strive for the realization of carbon neutrality by 2050. This goal will be pursued as part of Honda's environmental initiatives, which is one of the top priorities of Honda as a mobility manufacturer. Towards this end, Honda needs to funnel its corporate resources in research and development into the areas of future power unit and energy technologies, including fuel cell vehicle and battery EV technologies, which will be the core of carbon-free technologies. Towards this end, Honda made the decision to conclude its participation in Formula One. Bombshell!
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but Friday, October 2nd was a weird day, considering
it
that
will go down in infamy.
Considering that most people woke up to the news that the President of the United States had tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh yeah, that whole chestnut. And can I say, worst is probably still yet to come for a 74-year-old man in terrible shape who decides to eat his well-done steak with ketchup. And orders multiple filet of fish and Big Macs on his same McDonald's order. This is all well known.
This man eats pizza with a fork.
Can I just say, PSA, if you are ever in a position of power, please show the same level of empathy and compassion that you would unto others as you would hope they would show unto you.
Correct. Also, oh my god, Honda quit F1.
Honda quit.
Oh yeah, this
honestly,
was,
it's like it says a lot about
God.
the state of my timeline when I actually saw the Honda news first before Donald Trump getting the Roma. I thought that was hilarious, personally.
I woke up to the notification that Honda was quitting.
Yeah, this was a bombshell. I literally tweeted like, "Hey, morning guys, how we going? Whoa, Nelly!" Whoa. This was a genuine shock to everybody except Cranky Yankee on Twitter, who apparently called it back in January. The friggin' clairvoyance. Somehow,
I'm pretty sure he didn't think that a fucking Alpha was gonna get a race win.
We ain't talking Alfa Romeo.
Indeed, I mean, but I do find it amazing that as Formula One goes into hybrids and has had now, 7 years of the hybrid era, it's like now Honda wants to pull the trigger on trying to be carbon neutral by 2050 when they're already in a sport that's trying to do the same. I find it interesting that that's going now, Cam. Go on.
Well, the thing is, when Honda say we aim to be carbon neutral, it's all well and good.
Yeah,
but people need to remember that Honda has left F1 multiple times. This is not the first time, second time, or even the third time.
No, this is the 4th time they've done it. First time, 68, massive guilt over one of their drivers dying in a
Well, the
testing
thing is,
accident.
it's not just that. In 1968, they also left motorcycle racing. They left all top-flight motorsport.
They quit again in 1992.
Yep.
They quit again in 2008 during the last global economic crisis that we know of, pre-corona.
Here's the thing.
This one's different.
Honda has always treated Formula One as an engineering challenge.
Yeah.
And when they feel that they have achieved all they can achieve with their current budget, which up to this point has been a bottomless pit,
right,
to try and get out of the hole that they were in at the end of 2017. Now, Honda has been winning races.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you could argue that they're the stronger side of the equation when Red Bull is just getting beat upside the head by Mercedes on the chassis side.
I don't doubt that at all.
And you consider, well, we're spending all this money, and we are winning races, but what do we have to do to overtake Mercedes if we're already dumping in effectively an endless budget? When, as they say in their press release, there's a big transition coming for cars as a whole. Those mines and that money, in Honda's eyes, are used better elsewhere. And we'll get into it later, but they recommitted to another series that also uses twin turbocharged V6s with hybrid systems.
Yeah.
But that's a drop in the bucket compared to F1 financially.
Yeah.
Big old drop in the bucket.
It makes me sad because I remember when Honda came back into F1 and we all kind of laughed at them. I was like, oh my god, they're getting back into Formula 1. They're like 3 years behind all the other major players in the
they were the laughing
unit
stock of the motorsport world.
Yeah,
for 3
like
years.
their announcement press release at the launch of this being a thing was that Alonso Button was gonna be the new Prost Senna.
Oh,
You got the dream
that.
team back together. You got Prost and Senna. You remember what McLaren Honda did?
Was
Last
it?
time they were
Was, it
together.
was
But that was like
hashtag
that was 2 decades ago.
hashtag make history, and they did make history as McLaren's worst season.
yeah.
And
yet, despite all of that, and despite the struggles, and despite the laughter, and the mockery, and the GP2 engine references that this team had to go through, they
clawed it back.
They clawed it back. They produced a competitive engine. We saw the famous moment when Pierre Gasly was able to hold off Hamilton in a drag race to the line on maximum power last year. That was cute. And they are the only power supplier in Formula 1 that has won multiple races with multiple teams. And that is quite the accomplishment. And
It really is.
When you consider, just look at the comparison between where Ferrari was in 2017 and Honda was in 2017. It's like their positions are flipped.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And yet,
pretty much.
you know, again, Honda has poured so much into this. They reference it in their press release, the all Honda strategy. They were dumping aerospace minds into this, their best automotive minds, to try and make this program work.
Some of those dudes probably made Asimo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unironically.
Ironically.
And this is Honda, who have been pouring everything they are as an engineering company into this.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that money and all of those resources and those minds behind it, well, they can't really do much when Mercedes is just slapping the field on every front. Christian Horner said it after the last round. Mercedes has produced their most complete car of the era.
Thinking back on reflection and looking back at it now, we've had like the better part of a week to digest this announcement. It always just seemed to me, like looking back on it now, that, and Cam alluded to this, it's just the fact that Mercs are stronger than they have ever been. They, like, maybe not so much in terms of win count. We'll know more by the end of the season. But
they've returned. Their gap to the field has blown back out to where it was in 2015, 2016.
And they have the second best car in the field underneath them with Red Bull. Clearly, right now, the number 2 car in the field. AlphaTauri is genuinely, and they've won a Grand Prix of AlphaTauri, and that's a hell of a bonus price to have. But if you're throwing like 9 digits a year at this project, knowing you have no chance of improving realistically upon the juggernaut of the brand, against the juggernaut of the brand that has gone and probably will go 7 years undefeated in a row in Formula One, and let's be honest, not even really challenged for most of those 7 years.
We had 2 years of a legitimate challenge.
Yeah. What's the point? It's
conceivable that Mercedes might go perfect on this set of engine regulations.
And that's crazy to think, because we won't see new engine regulations until the 2026 season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a crazy statement to say Mercedes could clean house every year until the new engine regs.
It's not exactly an optimistic outlook for the future of sport when it comes to new entities coming in. We talked about it earlier in the month. We talked about how there's going to be that $200 million entry fee that's now been chucked in there. And now we know that the engine regulations are going to go largely unchanged for the next half decade. Why would anybody want... unless somebody's sold up at a discount rate, why would anyone want to get into the sport right now?
Yeah, well, that part wasn't new. I think the idea was, hey, maybe with the 2022 regulation changes, we get new manufacturers in, and they can help us decide what the next set of engine regulations are. But
that.
Yeah.
You see, they had one right in the palm of their hand, and then they were indecisive with what they wanted the new engine regs to be. And in fact, all 4 of the current engine manufacturers said, no, we don't want to change engine regulations. And those guys over in Weissach said, well, I guess we'll just throw this engine under a cover. So it goes back to, it's very similar to what was going to happen with LMP1 before Porsche pulled out, and we had a draft of the new LMP1 regulations that were going to succeed LMP1H. And they were manufacturer driven, and they were just too expensive. And
bit of a running pattern with modern F1, isn't it, really? It's almost a bit too expensive.
Yeah, they catered to the manufacturers by keeping the current engine regulations, and then one of those manufacturers just bailed.
Yeah. And now
sloppy enough to get caught. Yeah, dude, this is wild. So what do you think happens from here? Because there's been a bunch of speculation already about the potential of this Honda Power Unit program being flipped to somebody else, being Red Bull, being in another team, another company that's based in Milton Keynes, the UK division of Mugen Power, but not the old
Welcome
Mugen
back
Power
to Jordan Mugen Honda.
Yeah, it's not the same company.
Yeah.
And there's also one other interesting angle. King. Hey, so quick question. Is if Red Bull doesn't find an alternative supplier, what happens?
Well, it's a caveat in the agreements that the teams have to be in Formula One that should there be a situation where a team can't get access to a power unit, the power unit manufacturer with the least amount of customers is legally obligated to sell that team a power unit.
King, who might that be at this current moment and going into 2022?
Hit him with it.
Considering that they have one customer now and will have 0 customers next year, it will be Renault.
Oh! God! Hate sex!
Who is ready? Deck. Who is ready for Red Bull Mitsubishi?
No, it is bad.
The alliance.
It's like it's like moving back in with that awkward ex-girlfriend. You like, no one's here for this. I literally got I literally went viral for doing this.
The best part about it is Christian Horner is already being like, well, Renault's changed as a company since we broke up. Things might go different this time.
I'm not gonna say what season it is while it's getting cold.
Brown nose. Brown nose in the middle of cuffing season, Christian Horner, right here.
Babe you up.
It's like, honey. It's like I literally went semi-viral for a meme on the other day when I literally just put a picture of Cyril whispering in Horner's ear and I put the quote, look at me, I'm the captain now.
Cyril, you up?
Look, there's realistically 4 possibilities, and 3 of them are not very realistic. One is that Red Bull could leave. They just signed the contract to stay, so nah.
Yeah, they're all on the Concord agreement. So.
Technically, Red Bull could leave, but they would just have to sell the team to someone else.
Wouldn't they incur a fine as well?
No, they could sell the team to someone else.
Okay. Fair.
If they straight up,
but nobody's buying.
Pay the Concord fine.
Nobody's buying an F1 team right now.
Oh, you'd be surprised about that one.
Well, that's the thing. If they could get it at a cheap enough discount,
because the thing is, due to the price, the new incurred price of starting a Formula 1 team from scratch is actually a lot more attractive to buy a current team than to start a new one.
Yeah.
Fair.
One, you don't pay the £200 million fine, and 2, Red Bull doesn't have to pay the fine for breaking the Concord agreement early, which is, I think, is €100 million.
You have to remember, though, they have to sell 2 teams.
Yeah, they have to sell, even though there are currently 2 interested buyers.
That's the possibility. That's possibility number 1. Not very likely. 2, what RJ alluded to. Honda has said that if someone is willing to buy up the operation, they will sell their engine department and the work that they've done.
Yeah, they'll sell the intellectual property.
Who's ready for Red Bull Cola power units?
Because
the power units with the real taste of cola.
Because,
and cocaine.
After buying the IP, there's so much attached cost. You would have to literally set up an engine program from scratch. You need
all of the engineers. You'd have the materials and the shop, and that's about it.
I highly doubt that all those Honda F1 engineers are getting fired by Honda.
They're not.
And
I
highly doubt
said they're not.
And I highly doubt they would want to leave Honda for a Red Bull engine program that you don't know how long it's going to last. If you're a Honda company, man, you're staying with Honda because you know Honda's going to be around for a long time.
Right.
Honda Eternal. Possibility 3. Hey, is it Porsche Engineering on the line? You still got that engine in your basement?
Happening.
That's not happening. There's no way that's happening. It's been suggested. That engine's been sitting in the basement for about 3 years. You would need to fund an entire program, put an MGUH on it because it doesn't have one. Those were the proposed new engine regulations. And Porsche would have to be willing to do that, and they're probably just going to drop the thing in their next road car.
Yeah,
if
you put it in an F1 car, it's going to be severely off the pace.
Yeah, it's going to need 3 years worth of development, at least, and possibility for
Red Bull Renault.
Red Bull Renault, babe, I'm sorry. Can you please take me back?
Can you please take me back?
That's what's going to happen.
And Renault has no choice in the matter.
Renault literally has no choice. And at a discount as well. Red Bull would be given a discount on this.
Yeah, it'll be a customer price.
God.
Could you imagine? It's that literal scene from Drive to Survive Series 1 where Abitable walks up to Horner and goes, he needs a driver and an engine.
I'm just thinking of somebody at Ferrari though, just being like, "Well, hey, we never said we wanted to supply Red Bull with engines." Red Bull's just like, "I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing."
Honestly, Ferrari might be best off just selling the whole team to Red Bull. They might be able to run it better, which is terrifying.
Wait, this is how we get Toro Rosso back on the grid with AlphaTauri.
It's the Italian dream team. We merge Minardi and Ferrari.
Oh, man.
I know which side of that equation is more competently run.
Damn right.
Yeah. So who's ready for Red Bull checks notes?
Tag lawyer? Roof?
Nissan?
Alpine?
We're already getting that.
Look, so Honda's pulling out of F1. They're going to recommit to IndyCar because those regulations are cheaper. That'll be through the end of the decade. They're not leaving the domestic automobile racing scene. They're not leaving motorcycles.
They're recommitting. They've effectively committed to LMDH as well.
Yeah.
Also twin turbocharged V6s. Also hybrids.
Yeah.
It's a start.
It's at the end of the day, it all comes down to the money.
Yeah, this is not worth the investment that Honda are putting into it, and TLDR, they'd rather dump all that infinite amount of money into like making future-proofing cars with renewable technology, or hell, even Osimo 2.
Awesome. If Osimo's so good, why isn't there an Osimo 2?
Good question. Also, questions need to be asked about the state of some of their backed young drivers, because there's a big elephant in the room here regarding the Formula 2 Championship, and a lot of people, as a small Japanese son, Yuki Tsunoda, who is Honda backed and is in title contention in Formula 2 right now and needs a top 4 finish in the championship to get a super license for next year, which, if he does, he's a good contender to get in the second AlphaTauri seat alongside Pierre Gasly, most likely next year.
Yeah, we should clarify. Honda isn't bailing immediately. They're bailing at the end of 2021. We have one more year.
Right. And if Tsunoda gets through the door this year, then he's already cleared that barrier to entry. And one thing that I did find out is that Yuki Tsunoda is not just a Honda contracted driver. He is a Red Bull athlete. So
even though it should be noted, like, the term Red Bull athlete is so generic and vague, it can mean anything. Like Connor Daly is a Red Bull athlete.
That's fair.
Yeah, like what we need is to have a Red Bull Rich Energy tie up.
No,
Rich
stop
Energy,
right there.
Rich Energy livery, Red Bull athlete. It's the ultimate combo.
Can we ban him from the podcast, please? What is this bullshit? I'm
less worried about Yuki Tsunoda than I am guys like Ren Sato and Ayumu Iwasa, who've just come over to Europe from Japan. They're dominating French Formula 4, and that's effectively their legs cut out from underneath them. So now they have to face a decision whether or not to go independent or to just come back home, knowing that they have security as Honda-backed drivers.
Super GT has always got seats available.
Oh yeah, I mean there's that element to it. That's going to be a tough decision. But yeah, Honda's pulling out at the end of next season. Don't know how to feel about it other than sad. Devastating.
It's a shame. Yeah. Look, the more manufacturers, more support in F1 is objectively a good thing. It helps break up the political powers in F1. And with the vast majority of the grid being Mercedes and Ferrari powered, they have a lot of sway.
Right.
Indeed. I sincerely hope that things balance out soon, but it's another blow for Formula One in a hybrid era that's already drawn enough criticism as it is for many on and off track related reasons. There is no nice way of spinning up losing the second best engine supplier in the field right now.
I also would say, I mean, when people say, well, why these regulations are stupid, why are we trying to make F1 green? Well, keep in mind, Honda said they never would have come back without these engine regulations anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
They're a double-edged sword. And in keeping them for as long as they have, F1 is now kind of behind the ball on technology like they were at the end of 2013 compared to other cheaper series.
Right.
Even though, like, the way Formula One was originally planned to be back in the 50s is that the regulations were supposed to always change. Like, every 5 years, the regulations were supposed to be thrown out and come up with new ones. So it'd always be at the forefront of automotive technology.
Yeah,
and yet we're going to have 13 years of these hybrids at least before we get another major change.
Yeah.
And they're
13.
both, simultaneously, they're the most advanced internal combustion engines on Earth. Nothing has thermal efficiency like these.
Right.
And yet, their hybrid systems are pretty heavily kneecapped.
Yeah, they're heavily restricted.
A lot of being fast in F1 is abusing those restrictions.
Yeah, because they limit how much electric power you could regenerate over a course of a single lap. They also restrict how much power you could deploy over a single lap. Like, partially, that's okay if you do one or the other, but when you do both at the same time, it's heavily restricted, and it's not really worth pumping all that money into when there's a set limit on how much efficiency you can get out of it.
Yeah, and you compare it to, it blew up in everyone's face, but in LMP1, the hybrid systems were making gigantic leaps every year.
That's right.
And
I
really,
kept saying all the time, hey, LMP1 hybrid is producing all this great racing at a fraction of the cost. What's F1's excuse for not embracing this?
Well, it wasn't at a fraction of the cost, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
big price tag.
When you have the exposure of F1, you have to question, if you're going to keep it relevant enough to keep manufacturers in it, you have to open that up.
Or constantly change the rules.
Or constantly change the rules. Because now it's almost like it was at the end of the V8 era where, KERS is hybrid, but it's not, only in air quotes. Now these are hybrid compared to other racing series, but at a gigantic cost for not a lot of return. Whereas you can just go into FE and develop the motors and have it be a drop in the bucket by comparison.
Right. Yeah. Formula E is embracing this. They've got to find a way to press forward and not go back into the Stone Age as everybody would want, but they have to do it in a manner that makes sense financially.
Yeah.
If that is even at all possible.
The problem is finding the balance between the financials, the financials just dumping money into the sport.
Right.
The financials of the teams being able to survive it and being relevant enough for manufacturers and company to be interested enough to join.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a tough balance.
Because that's one of the biggest, I wouldn't say issues with Formula One, is that Formula One inherently needs manufacturers, not only for like development reasons, but a lot of Formula One's marketing is based off of the manufacturers marketing Formula One. Without that, Formula One is gonna quickly fall into being a very niche sport.
Right.
It's already niche enough.
As if it isn't niche enough as it is, jeez. Because there is no scope for improvement in the state of participation right now, and there won't be anytime soon. So
because without the manufacturers, there's no difference between like Formula One and yacht racing.
Yeah, we're not living in the era where you could just go buy a Cosworth DFV, plug in a Hewland gearbox, get your drivers, and if you do a decent job on the chassis, you're probably gonna win the championship.
Oh.
Yeah, because I think there's a very niche place for Formula where there's an avenue for Formula One to continue on forward if they really push down this hybrid lane. That's the future for Formula One, being the hybrid world championship.
As it stands right now, it's just it's only a portion of the way there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more work will be needed, especially now we are down to 3 suppliers again. Should we get into IndyCar, boys?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think race 1 was the Apple Cider Grand Prix? Or was it the Pumpkin Spice Grand Prix?
I'd prefer the Pumpkin Spice, because I wasn't here for race 1, actually, so I'll let you
I wasn't here either. Dre, what happened?
What happened? Well, Venus VK got his first
Venus
P1
VK.
Big Renus energy.
Yes.
Spin moves for days. Rinus VK's first P1 award. He started from the pole. And, well, it lasted all of about 10 seconds as Colton Herta took the whole shot into turn 1 going around the outside of him. But it was a tremendous early scrap with the pole sitter. Rinus coming out on top, hanging it around the outside of the back straight to retake the lead. Meanwhile, further back, everyone's favourite American, Santino Ferrucci, spins out Ryan Hunter-Reay out of contention. After the former refused to back out and use the grass on the outside of turn 1 to rejoin. Way to go, Santucci. Colton and Rinus got into another heated exchange on lap 20. Rinus going round the outside of turn 2 to defend his position, but Herta hit him with the reverse dummy to the inside, under braking for turn 6 to retake the lead. By the way, spectacular pass. If you have not seen it, go out of your way to find it.
That's going in the nominations this year.
Oh God, yes. That was a perfectly executed dummy. It was wonderfully done. Meanwhile, creeping on the lead was Joseph Newgarden, and after some sustained pressure for the lead, Colton Herta cooked his tyres and ran wide at turn 1, gifting Joseph the lead. After the final round of stops, he proceeded to beat him down on the opposition and win comfortably. Alex Rossi pulled off a stunning late move for second on Colton Herta.
Stop it, you.
Oh, get out. Meanwhile, Marco Andretti had a late retirement due to his engine catching fire, as you do. And in a mistake that pretty much summed up his Friday after missing out on a best qualifying run, Scott Dixon dropped from 7th to 9th with a rare braking error into turn 6, which was about as good as, it was about as bad a weekend as Dixon's had all year, really, which still says a lot about the state of Dixon this season. He's had a bad month and yet not dropped out of the top 10 at any race. That is a bad weekend for Scott Dixon at this point. And the note I put in the notes here, I said this was about as good a race as you could get for a race that was 100% under green flag running. Because normally, the Hall of Fame level races have some form of major shenanigans, whether it be rain, a well-timed caution or whatever, or some sort of spectacular incident. This race didn't have that, but the racing was just immense. Rinus VeeKay and Colton Herta, my goodness, what a fight those two had. That was tremendous racing. My word.
Should go back and see that.
I wish we had more time to go into it even further, but, again, if you haven't seen the highlights, please go out of your way to do so, because Herta and VeeKay beat the crap out of each other with racing cars, and they made it stick. I said it on Twitter at the time. If the future of the series is guys like VeeKay and Herta, the sport's in very, very secure hands going forward.
100%. And
because that was clean and hard but fair, not an inch of contact. That is as good as wheel-to-wheel racing gets, as far as
wheel-to-wheel racing with respect.
God, you
rare these days.
Race 2. Death, taxes, Will Power on the pole for the 61st time. Oh yeah, go ahead and watch race 1. So Will Power's on pole in race 2, and he took the lead and pretty much stayed there while the others jostled for position behind him. The only man staying with the Aussie was Colton Herta. Remember that. It becomes important later. Further back, Joseph Newgarden was making good progress up the field, eventually finishing 4th while Scott Dixon made another error, making contact around the outside of Ryan Hunter-Reay, the latter coming over the curve and in the side of him. Clunky, he ended up finishing 8th. The final laps had Will Power being gunned down at the end by Colton Herta. He huffed and he puffed, but he just couldn't get close enough to force a pass, and Will Power took a dominant victory, leading every one of the 75 laps en route to tie Al Unser Sr. for 5th on the all-time IndyCar wins list. So Dre, how's this championship looking?
Now, for those guys that aren't in the know, there is only one round left in the championship. The series finishes off at St. Petersburg. I want to say in 2 weeks' time. I think it's 2 weeks' time for the series finale. And as mentioned or as alluded to, Dixon was a bit slippery. So 9th and 8th for him in the end of these two races. And well, he's opened the door just a hint for Joseph Newgarden, maybe. Just a nudge.
His championship lead has gone from insurmountable to very healthy.
So you're saying there's a chance. Dixon.
Pretty
I'm
much.
saying if there is divine intervention that cannot
Lightning
be...
bolt.
If there's divine intervention that cannot be stopped by Emma Dixon with a chainsaw, there's a chance.
See, here's the thing, because Dixon, if he finishes 8th or better at St. Pete, it's not a double points race. If he finishes 8th or better, which is what he's done, which is what he did in that second race, if he finishes 8th, he's clinched it, even if Newgarden wins from the pole and leads the most laps and gets all the possible bonuses.
Yeah,
They tie to
Newgarden
top the standings.
He needs the greatest weekend of his career.
Yeah,
That's what
if
he
they
needs.
tie to top the standings, both drivers would have 4 victories on the season, but Dixon will win the tiebreaker by virtue of his 2 second places compared to 1 for Joseph Newgarden. Suddenly, it's a lot more interesting than this was about maybe a month or 2 ago. And look, I know I'm big boy Joseph Newgarden fan here. I'm just glad that Joseph made it close.
Yeah, but the thing
Even if he falls up
that
short, I'm not going to begrudge Dixon.
based on his recent run of form, it's looking like it's going to be real difficult for Scott Dixon to finish 8th or better.
Yeah, I was really thinking after Indy that Dixon would just get his revenge by putting his title away early, and instead, this is the worst he's looked all year.
Yeah.
And it's
By
not
a mile,
fluke,
which is
like-
it's kind of easy to look that way when the best he looked all year was winning everything. Every race.
You win 3 races in a row to start the year. You have 4 wins in total. I mean, he's finished every race, and he only has 4 finishes outside the top 8.
Yeah.
Indeed, but this is the...
You know what he'll be ruining? Right now, he's ruining the fact that he didn't win Indy. Not just because he didn't win Indy, but because that would have put it away early.
Mid-Ohio should have been his bank around to put it away, and he left the door open there when he didn't win either one of those races, or even get on the podium or inside the top 5.
I was going to say, Mid-Ohio is Dixon land, and that was, up to this point, his worst run of the year.
Can we get his name off like the landlord ownership now after like a good handful of years of relatively mediocre finishes by his standards?
Now it can be Ricky Taylor land after the most recent IMSA round.
Indeed.
3 wins in a row.
Indeed. Yeah, they like to tie up the I's and to dot the I's and cross the T's. Basically, they're the only 2 men that are eligible to win the title. I don't think Colton Herta can get there. No, he actually got 101 points behind. So it's only Dixon or Newgarden. Dixon has 502 points. Joseph Newgarden has 470.
I just think it's a 500-point season with this few rounds.
It's crazy. And there'll be 1 less double pointer by the time we're all said and done as well. It's the equivalent of taking another race off the board. It's crazy to say the least. To wrap up some of the other positions, Colton Herta now up to 3rd in the championship. He's on a real hot run of form at the moment. He's 3rd now on 401. Will Powell's win in race 2 puts him up to 4th on 388. Pato, don't be too disillusioned. It's still like a really, really good season if you finish 5th at 376. Graham Rahal, 6th on 354. Takuma on 328. Simon Pagano on 311. Man, where has he been the second half of the year?
I love you could say, where has he been, and he's 8th in the championship.
Yeah,
By Simon's standards, that's poor.
Well, being mired in 20th-ish in the 500 didn't do him any favors.
Did him in badly, really bad. He'd be a comfortable 4th with a decent 500. Alex Rossi, well, he's starting to dig himself out of the hole with 4 straight podium finishes the last 4 races.
He's got another mile to the surface.
He'll just drive angry and give himself 200 points in the final round. Why not?
Oh my God.
He's 9th on 305 and King Felix in 10th on 294. As RJ alluded to, Dixon must finish 8th or better in St. Pete to clinch his 6th Astor Cup. That will guarantee it. That's the easiest permutation on the maths. A top 8 finish guarantees it for Scott Dixon.
Now, I know that Dixon's in this conversation. If Joseph comes back and wins title number 3, is he in the discussion that often involves certain barnyard animals?
I think it's
No.
the pig.
No, because he don't got a 500.
yeah. Need at least one.
You need one. You need at least
You
one.
need one. We need one.
There's a reason why Dixon said he'd trade every title for more 500s.
He's building a case, though. I feel like the 500's coming. But 3 national titles would be a good place to start in a span of 4 years.
The problem is that we say the 500 is coming every year, and then he's just kind of okay at Indy.
Yeah.
He's great everywhere else. He's phenomenal.
He's not. I was going to say the Cut Your King there, but he's not really been a contender at Indy for the last 3 or 4 years, Joseph.
Well,
he's never really had a car where you think, bang, he's got a real shot at winning this one.
Well, we thought it in 2019, and then, as it turns out, Simon was using him to save fuel and suck the paint off him on the way by.
And the thing is, you need a 500 win to even be considered. Like, the fact that Michael Andretti is 4th on the all-time wins list, and no one
puts him up there.
Yeah, no one has Michael Andretti on, like, greatest of all time conversation.
Well, that's like...
No.
Mario would be, like, undisputedly the greatest of all time if he had more than one 500.
Yeah.
But that leaves it leaves the door open.
Once
Newgarden
again,
certainly has the skill to win 500s. He has the skill to win anywhere.
He has 3 top 10. He has 3 top 5 finishes and 5 top 10 finishes in this race.
Michael Andretti has the most laps led at this race.
But that's the thing, RJ. At Penske in the 500, and this year really wasn't good enough at the 500. But top 5s at the 500 when you've been there for years, it just ain't good enough.
I'm not stressed about it. Sorry to play mediocre white man playing devil's advocate on a podcast.
Oh, never. That never happens.
Now I want to talk about the IndyCar schedule. The schedule.
It exists.
2021.
Yes, so the IndyCar Series confirmed its 2021 schedule this past week, and among the changes including the confirmation of the Music City Grand Prix in the streets of Nashville, Tennessee. We have Texas Motor Speedway becoming a doubleheader and moving to the start of the month of May before Indianapolis. And the second trip to the Grand Prix course in Indy is still on the calendar, but it's moving to the summer months in August as part of a doubleheader with NASCAR's Brickyard 400. But we've lost Circuit of the Americas. And we've lost Iowa Speedway and Richmond Raceway. Richmond before it ever even had a chance to return. And that's had a lot of people concerned because Richmond and Iowa will now join Pocono, Phoenix, Auto Club, the Milwaukee Mile as oval races that we've had on the calendar in recent years. Nobody comes to them. The races are poorly promoted and then they're dropped from the calendar. And in the case of Iowa Speedway, which isn't even on the NASCAR docket right now, that could mean the end of that track's entire lifespan after just 15 years.
For once, I can say this. I'm kind of disappointed Chris isn't here, because Chris was furious about the schedule.
Yeah.
Oval racing
Chris was mad as hell.
Oval racing is... It's barely there anymore in IndyCar.
Yeah, this is basically kart. This is like just trade.
This is kart.
Just trade.
It's Champ Car.
Yeah.
We're back in Champ Car, folks.
This is just kart. Just change what Phoenix was in the early 90s to Gateway, and it's kart.
Yeah, and they actually got the 500 back. It's going to live this time. It's frustrating because the whole... It's the duality of IndyCar, isn't it? It's having to have different disciplines, different techniques at different types of tracks.
Absolutely. That was my draw to watching this sport in the late 90s when I was a child, is that they could race on ovals like they do in NASCAR, but they also turn left and right, and that's pretty awesome. And hey, if you are named after the most famous super speedway in the world, then you are at least entitled to go run on at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or even more oval courses. Yeah, the only difference between this and Champ Car is like Champ Car in the Malaise era, the mid-2000s, didn't have a good relationship with anybody but the people that ran the Milwaukee Mile, it seemed.
Yeah. And it's this. We have the 500 here. And we've
500.
said it before.
We have Texas that's grandfathered in the calendar, and Gateway's the only track on the calendar that's been able to buck the trend, put asses in seats, and have a fun and entertaining race that people want to come to.
Yeah,
and Texas stunk.
The biggest issue is that, like, IndyCar, for, the centuries that it's existed, like, this schedule is the schedule for the 100th season of the national championship.
How's that as a fuck you to the heritage of your sport?
But the thing is,
God.
IndyCar's heritage is we race at wherever is popular at the moment. And, like, street racing is always going to be that thing, because, number one, you can't, like, tear down a street track. Streets are just going to be there. But the thing is, once you stop going to ovals and ovals get torn down, you can't rebuild the ovals when people want to see oval racing again.
No, and the NASCAR schedule also came out, and that's very spicy.
Yeah,
and that's losing tracks as well.
They're almost tripling the amount of road courses that they usually have.
Yeah.
They're going to dump several truckloads of dirt into Bristol Motor Speedway to give us the first dirt race since the Grand National era.
Yeah,
but they're also cutting 2 modern super speedways that don't have a future, just like Iowa does.
Yeah, like with the recent returns of Portland and Laguna Seca, clearly the fad in American motorsport at the moment is permanent road courses. Which is
a good fad to have.
Yeah, people want to see good old school tracks, which is probably why we don't see Circuit of the Americas coming back.
Even though Circuit of the Americas, for all the shit that it gets, produced a couple very, very good IndyCar races.
It did. They were
they did.
The thing that's more frustrating, because look, more road courses is still a good thing.
Yeah.
Road courses are good. But it's the fact that the duality of American open wheel racing, where it is the multi-pronged expertise that thrives, that's an aspect that is going away.
I think the biggest issue is that, for the most part, there are so many racing venues of that caliber in the U.S. that no single series could support them, especially when you have multiple venues in the same market. Like, in Milwaukee, we have both Road America and the Milwaukee Mile. Southern California, there's a multitude of different racing venues you can go to.
Go wherever you want.
Like, at one point in time, IndyCar raced there twice a year at both Long Beach and Auto Club Speedway. Like,
bring back Ontario.
There's so many venues that someone's gonna be left in the lurch, and it sucks when it's a permanent venue that could close and go away forever.
Yeah,
right.
And look at now, Pocono is trying to thrive off of a NASCAR doubleheader.
Yeah.
When NASCAR is famously awful at Pocono.
Yeah.
It's just a shame.
Because pretty much racing has moved past a lot of these venues to the point where they need to renovate, update, like reformat to make them more suitable for current racing machines. The issue is that a lot of these venues don't have the capital to make these large-scale investments.
We could get into it next week, because I don't know if we're going to have enough time to get into this, but can I just say how fucked it is that Brazil's going to knock down a bunch of rainforests to go replace Interlagos because baby daddy bitch Bolsonaro wants a home track, and yet we're out here just dismantling a bunch of good ovals.
Yeah.
Yeah. To replace fucking Interlagos, which is great every year.
We'll get into that next
Fuck
week.
You for doing that.
We do have some good IndyCar news.
Yeah, good IndyCar news. The return of Indy Lights for 2021, which will include not 1, not 2, but 3 drivers getting scholarships for the full season, and they're going to modify the Dallara IL-15 to add the titanium halo. As far as the scholarship drivers, they are Kyle Kirkwood, who we knew was going to race this season until it was canceled. We had Stingray Robb, that is his real name. He steps up from the Indy Pro 2000 series. And a third scholarship is going to the Formula Regional America's Championship winner, King, and that is Linus, not Tech Tips Lundquist, who has won 12 of the first 14 races this season and is pretty much a stone cold lock. I would just love it if they could draw a good field.
Yeah,
Please,
like
that's all I ask.
like those 3 drivers gonna be real fun to watch. It's like the seats make sense because Kirkwood had a scholarship seat for this season, couldn't use it. The Indy Pro 2000 scholarship was given as default, but the last one, Formula Regional America's getting a scholarship. Like, I wonder if that's only a temporary basis because there was no Indy Lights this year, or if it's permanent and the road to Indy just got one lane wider.
I'd love to see that.
Oh, but I think like if they continue to do that, it'll consistently ensure that Indy Lights is going to be a lot larger than the less than 10 cars we're used to.
Yeah, Indy Lights has, in the last couple of years, famously had a lot of problems putting any kind of field together.
And the irony is that those drivers at the top, we were just talking about Rinus VeeKay and Colton Herta. They came out of that destitute and barren Indy Lights series and are kicking ass.
Because there may not be any quantity, but there was a whole lot of quality in the last graduate class.
Yeah, and it's seeming like, Indy Lights is going to be the primary avenue for drivers coming in the IndyCar. It doesn't seem like a lot of people going into F2 nowadays want to come to IndyCar, or I think, Alex Palou coming over from Super Formula might have been like a real one-off deal. We might not get a large number of drivers coming from Super Formula.
Yuki, Honda's leaving F1. Want to come over?
That's not a bad idea.
I'd love to see that.
Speaking of bad ideas, Dre, what's next on the set list? Oh.
Uh-oh.
You know it's never a good sign when karting, which we never cover on Motorsport 1, is on the set list? Oh, buddy, it's time. It's time for the return.
Fire up the theme.
It's Fight Club!
I didn't remember we had a theme for Fight Club. Dre, set the scene for us.
We are going to the finals of the FIA KZ World Karting Championship at Lonato, Italy. There was a collision between 2012 champion Luca Corberi and Paolo Ippolito. Apologies for butchering the accents there. Now, in the aftermath of this incident, Luca stood on the side of the track, stalked the scene, waited for Ippolito to pass him before throwing the bumper of his broken cart at him.
Now, watching the video of that incident, was Ippolito actually the one that was hit? Because it seemed like he threw it at a cart. So. 2 carts go by, and the bumper finally makes it into the racing line.
It's like it hits the third guy. It's like, I don't think that was the intended target somehow. I don't think it was a particularly good throw. I don't think it's one that Clayton Kershaw would be proud of. Let's put it that way. Got to keep it topical. I don't think it was the intended target, funnily enough, and that was wild enough as it was. And also, shout out to my former boss, Jake Sanson, on commentary for that race, by the way. I was like,
I've never heard Sanson lose his mind like that before.
Oh my, the commentary team had a fucking blue screen while this was going on.
Yo,
Trust me.
My favorite contribution was from Tom Brooks. Who just tweeted, "That's made him look bad."
No, but I love when Colbert picks up his bumper and he's standing on the side of the track, like Jake's holding out hope. He's like, maybe like acting like maybe he'll put it down and just walk away. And then when he throws it, Jake's like, "Oh my god."
Nope.
Like, honestly, no. I say this in the nicest way possible. Jake is the most sincere, gentle man in the world, if you know him well. For him to go mad over this says a lot about how apocalyptically stupid this was. But wait, it gets worse.
Whoa! How does it possibly get worse?
After the race, amateur footage captured Corberi and his father, who, by the way, owns the track, may I add here. It's an important bit of context. His dad owns the circuit. They literally double-team the kid trying to fight Ippolito in the paddock itself.
So the way this plays out, first, Colberry the Younger confronts Ippolito. They I say confront. He literally charges at him and dives.
Well, that
and
is a form of confrontation.
Dives and does
And a spear by Reigns!
And does
spear by Reigns!
pretty much the cleanest American football dive tackle I've seen in a long time.
Oh.
Hands up, right at the chest. And he starts
Perfect wraparound.
and he starts going to town on him. Obviously, people rush him immediately, pull him apart. Then Colberry the Elder rushes in a black hoodie and
Oh
continues.
God, that's Marco Colberry coming out of the crowd.
Oh my god! Colberry the Elder. What a nickname that is. That's like something out of Game of Thrones. My god.
And he immediately starts wailing on the kid.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
What?
that's the one thing important to point out. Paolo Ippolito is a young Carter. Luca Corberry's 23.
Actually,
The winner of this race was a
23-year-old
33. Yeah, a winner of this race was a 33-year-old professional karter by the name of Jeremy Iglesias. Who, by the way, deserves much more plaudits for this.
and let's
for winning
see.
that
Oh,
race.
yes.
According to driver database, Paolo Ippolito, his age is not listed here. Oh man. But he can't be that young because Ippolito has been karting since 2008.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That's
what I'm
fair.
saying is that Luke, but the big point is that Luke is an adult. He's not a child.
Yeah.
You think.
They're both grown adults here.
So, what is the aftermath? Well, Luca Corberry posted on social media that he vows never to race again. That post was then deleted and then put back up. The FIA is conducting their own investigation of the incident, and the ACI, the Italian sporting body that sanctions karting, has recommended the lifetime banishment of Luca, Marco Corberry, and the entire Lonato circuit with which they race.
Yes.
whole
Automobile
book.
Club Italia want them gone.
Double G,
Oh my
double
gosh.
O, double N, double E. But you know, I kind of grow cynical because we said at the time, this is going to end his career. And how many times have we said that about other young men behaving like idiots?
Oh, never. Never happens.
But the thing is that karting doesn't get talked about often.
Yeah.
This made international news. It literally brought
This was front page news.
it brought
It made TMZ.
it brought the sport into disrepute. Like, if this happens in any sport for any reason, you bring your sport into disrepute, you're getting a lifetime ban.
Or it's
Oh, yeah.
NASCAR and they're going to put it in commercials.
Yeah, I was
we
about to
gotta
say,
sell
like,
next year's. We gotta sell next year's championship. Let's
this
go.
fight just looks like a typical Saturday night in Bowman Gray Stadium.
I mean,
Oh
But
my
that's me
God.
being raised on American
Yeah.
oval racing, where fighting is much more commonplace.
Yeah.
Here it's not as much.
yeah, in NASCAR, bringing your sport into disrepute is not fighting, it's attempting to start a union.
Shout out for... Hey, Curtis Turner got Bill Francine back at the end of it, and that's all that matters.
Outstanding.
10 points to
Oh.
King.
Is
That
this a good
points to King.
segue? Because we
That
can,
is
we
a
can make
perfect
time
segue.
for NASCAR.
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
my god. It
Yellow
was
World
Dega week.
500 at Talladega.
I don't even want to talk about it. I'll be back in an hour.
Okay, so the cut and dry, we have another race that takes 3 overtimes to decide. At the finish, Denny Hamlin passes below the double yellow line. What is the double yellow line, King?
It is basically NASCAR's
Out of
equivalence to out of bounds. You can't
Right.
go below it.
It's been on the books since Dale Sr. passed away. And Hamlin, they say he was trying to avoid a wreck, and that's why he was not penalized for going below the double yellow line and gets to keep his victory.
Oh my god.
Nobody buys this.
Nobody buys this because there's a couple rules around the double yellow line rule. Primarily, if you are forced down there by another car, someone doors you down there, there's not really much choice that you have but to go down there. Well, throughout the race, NASCAR was penalizing drivers, primarily Joey Logano,
Right.
for dooring people down there.
Right.
Whether intentionally or unintentionally, and that's where this is important. For the last, I don't even know how many years, it's getting close to 2
So we're
decades.
now on 20 years of the double yellow line.
Nearly
rule, and
20
this
years.
has never been enforced consistently.
This has never been enforced consistently because it is entirely at NASCAR's discretion, and NASCAR has always viewed it as a black and white issue. If you go down there, I don't give a shit why. If you advance your position, you're getting a penalty. Which is really not the right way to rule this. But they have. Carl Edwards was famously hosed in 2006 for going down below the yellow line, actually avoiding actual crashing cars.
Carl Edwards was once famously sent into the catch fence in 2009 because Brad Keselowski realized, what if I don't have to back out? What if I don't have to dip below the yellow line? What if I just hold my line, and if I start a wreck, well,
fuck them. Well, it's so fucking frustrating because
I was already having a terrible time watching Bubba Wallace get punted in the wall, not once, but twice.
While leading, Bubba Wallace led a race.
Yeah, but what had happened in this situation? Denny Hamlin goes below the yellow line, overtakes 2 cars, and by the time he comes back...
For the lead.
Yeah, for the lead. By the time he comes back, he's alongside the leaders.
Yeah, the 4 cars up in front of him, Matt DiBenedetto, Chris Buescher, William Byron, Eric Jones, all look like they're about to stack up in a wreck. Denny Hamlin dives down to the inside and passes all of them. They don't actually wreck.
Yep.
Yeah. And
somehow
it makes sense. In the context, if you watch the incident, it makes sense why Hamlin went down there. He wasn't necessarily doored down there, but he went down there to avoid a crash that looked like it was going to happen. He went down there in turn 4. If you know how steep the banking is at these tracks, you know you can't just go back up onto the banking. You will crash yourself.
33 degrees.
33 degrees of banking. Hamlin was right to not just come back up onto the track. But the point is they were already out of the corner by the time he starts coming back up on track, and he has a mile of room.
Yeah, like... He deliberately stayed down longer than he should have, kept his foot in it, which is fair, but
it's illegal.
Yeah, he deliberately spent far too much time down there to gain an advantage.
Yeah, and in the context of this, you would think, okay, they ruled it right. He was avoiding an accident, he stayed down there, but that NASCAR has never viewed that as an excuse. For almost 20 years now, NASCAR has viewed it black and white, no interpretation. If you're down there of your own volition and you pass cars, it's illegal.
Though
why now?
This rule is not going to survive this season the way it's written.
Yeah.
I know they said they have no plans to change it. I don't think that's
the real gut punch in this situation was the other cars
drivers
around Hamlin who got penalized.
Yeah, another driver. Let's see, Matt DiBenedetto,
Chase Elliott was penalized. Chase Elliott was penalized, and then his penalty was retracted
and given to someone else for forcing
and given to someone else. William Byron was also involved. I believe he was also penalized.
Yes, he was the driver who was penalized for forcing Chase Elliott off.
No, it was Chris Buescher.
Oh, Buescher, okay.
Yeah, it was the fact that at the time it happened, Hamlin had done something that someone else in the same cluster was penalized for, but he wasn't, and he won the race. Yeah. Now, NASCAR rescinded that penalty, but get it right the first time. And why are you changing your interpretation of the rule after it's been stonewall for 19 years?
Like, I think they really didn't want to strip Hamlin of the win.
They didn't want to go through the problem of an appeals process after 3 overtimes.
And
by the way,
and yet they did, RJ.
They kicked the finish off of network television because of
RJ,
football.
They did, because Chase Elliott's team had to issue a formal appeal against the results because of how they were penalized.
Yeah, like, there was a legitimate situation where the driver who would have won the race crossed the line third.
It's not acceptable. And
None of
NASCAR
this is
either
a good
has
look.
to, they have to clarify if this rule is open for interpretation from this point forward. Because it's always been Stonewall. And, oh boy, it's almost like Denny Hamlin is one of your two primary championship contenders. And right now, as a result of the Bubba news, one of the most high-profile names in the sport.
Yeah, I was about to say,
almost
well,
like,
Bubba couldn't win, but his future car owner did. I guess.
And it's almost a bit like, man, in 2003, Dale Jr. kind of sort of fell on this rule and wasn't penalized, even though he was kind of doored down there, but really wasn't. And they didn't penalize him because, well, Talladega would have been burned to the ground.
Right.
Figure out how you're going to fucking rule this in the future, because every couple of years we have a problem like this. And we've had drivers who've lost wins here being doored down below the yellow line and still being penalized. Hi, Regan Smith. Sorry, Regan Smith. My rant's over. I'm done. I'm gonna go have a cigarette.
Is that it? Are we gonna call it?
Anything else? Sports car racing happened. The Nürburgring was wet and BMW won. Indy was wet and BMW won. There's only 2 LMP1s for the final round of the WEC season.
Normally we talk about much brighter topics on this show. But this show's been a bit miserable outside of IndyCar, hasn't it? I mean, shit.
IndyCar's the bright spot.
We never talk about anything positive on the podcast.
Well, maybe when 2020 gives us something positive to talk about.
Hold that thought, because the third or fourth or fifth wave of COVID symptoms, those are usually the worst.
Always reassuring, as
Gotta
always on
play
this
the
show.
long game. Gotta play the long game.
Other good news. We alluded to it earlier. IndyCar ratified the new engine regs. Chevy and Honda are committed for the foreseeable future.
Which is good. That is good.
Yay. See, we can end on a positive note.
Yeah.
Kind of. Places
And
you can
Super
find us
GT.
one.
Super GT was pretty good. Go watch
Yeah.
more Super GT. It's great.
Always a plus. Yeah, as you do.
Is that the team?
Shameless
It's the Calsonic shirt. Let's
That's
go.
right. That's right.
All right.
YouTube.com/Motorsport101, Facebook.com/Motorsport101, Instagram.com @Motorsport101 Pod, Twitter @Motorsport_101. Personal handles down there on the screen @Harrison101HD, Ryan Eric King, RJ O'Connell, C Buckley 917, Patreon.com/Motorsport101. Did I get it all?
Yes.
Pretty much. You got it all. I guess I've got to say goodbye now, haven't I? We'll be back next week for Formula 1 back at the Nürburgring. That should be fun, right?
Yeah.
We love the Grand Prix Strecke here.
Lads, 40% chance of rain on Sunday.
It's gonna happen after the race is
Yeah,
over.
that's a 60% chance of it not raining.
No.
All I'm gonna say is if we get the same I don't know how we're gonna get the same podium finishers as last time, but man, if it's a Vettel, Raikkonen, Grosjean podium, goddamn.
That could be fun. Until then, we'll be back from the Eiffel Grand Prix. Until then, sayonara, folks. Take care.
Later, y'all!
Why?
Yuki Tsunoda to the Honda Super Cub Cup.